2 years before when I did the presentation at Stockholm and I met a few people there were things I took back to my leadership. There are 3 things that I learned from my AMEC conference last time. 1, we communicators are not just to make news, we also create views. And that's what we're trying to do. Second, outcomes, have the outcome in place before you start a campaign or a project. So I've started working backwards. The third thing, in all my presentations to the board or the leadership, I always tell them what is working. I have stopped telling them about what campaigns we've come up with or what are we going to do. I say that this is what's working, this is not, and that is by the numbers. I give them hard numbers. It's not a very easy job, but I think in a company where we have 300,000, more than 300,000 employees, 180 countries, and in India, which is the India region, the South Asia region, 20,000 employees, 21 manufacturing units, more than 6,000 technologists, engineers, innovators, I think the numbers work. So just to set a context, before we go to the next stage, I'll just play in a video.
Every 2.2 minutes, an aircraft with GE technology lands in an airport in India. What if new intelligence could predict problems and help put an end to delays? With 50% of India's power generated with GE technology and 60% of power managed on GE grid technologies, what if we could convert, transport and monitor every watt of energy to help electrify every corner of the country? With the commitment to empowering communities across India, what if every child's mind was used to its full potential? With more than 3,500 patents and 5,300 technologists at work to redefine the future, what if minds and machines came together to create a world that never stops achieving? With GE medical technologies that touch more than 300 million lives every year, what if interconnected machines and cloud computing help doctors make life-saving decisions faster than ever before? With infrastructure and expertise used to supply 1,000 diesel locomotives in India, what if essential commodities could reach the farthest corners of the country? With more than 4 decades of experience serving India's oil and gas sector, what if digital systems could help reduce downtime and meet growing demand more efficiently? In a country that constantly reimagines the limits of possibility, what if a digital industrial company put brilliant machines to work to unlock even more potential? $18,500 employees, $2 billion of annual sourcing in manufacturing, 21 manufacturing sites, innovating, partnering, and developing solutions in India, for India. Imagination at work.
Disruption is something that is given. It is just that it's happening too often. It's become the new normal. And in GE, we communications team say we are not paid for what we do today. It is what we do tomorrow is what we are paid for. Which means at every point of time, we need to see what's working, pivot fast, and really, really fast. Right now, the company is going through a transformation. The boring, conservative, engineering, industrial organization is moving to a digital world. We're not competing with the likes in our spheres, in our businesses, in the 8 businesses that we have. We are competing with the Googles and the Microsofts and the digital competitors. And according to the CEO, Jeff, and our local CEO as well, it is communication which drives the transformation. It's like a huge ship, and you're trying to move the ship into a direction which is different. A 1-degree move actually means a lot. And at every point of time, measurement of the real stuff which people understand. What is relevant is what we focus on. And in the last couple of years, we've measured what's happening in the market in different countries. We call it the growth regions. In fact, last time I spoke of a standardized measurement technique, which Karma does it for us for a couple of regions. And that was simple for us. Now we say we're not going to be just measuring what we do. We're going to measure others who talk about us. We're going to tell their stories, and our partners are going to tell our stories. Now that is the next change that we're doing. We all know that, we've spoken about Edelman barometer, trust barometer. We know that leaders speaking, corporate speaking, media speaking, business speaking is no longer as credible as employee speaking. And we call that GE voices. Employee speaking, partner speaking, supplier speaking, and community speaking. These are the audiences that we've started looking at. Just to come back to an example of employees, today we create content or stories for our employees, and we also encourage them to write stories, their business stories, their success stories, their failure stories, and that is what we put out. We give them all the content, empower them with all the stuff that they need to, and we measure that. Suppliers, we have 700 suppliers in India doing sourcing of 2 billion and more USD. And most of these suppliers are very well connected to the government. 60% of our business in any market is with the government, whether it's oil and gas, aviation, transportation, power, healthcare, and that is a huge, absolutely huge audience for us. How do we speak to the government? How do we tell them that things are working without us actually going out in the market and beating our own trumpet? So multiple channels, go direct strategy, empowering employees, boundaryless, internal is no longer different from external, and sharing varied experiences is what we're focusing on. Now, a couple of things here. There are 3 things that we're really looking at in GE. One is go direct. And today morning, Deepa talked about how Modi goes direct and speaks to the audience, how Trump talks directly to the audience. The relevance of media is changing. And as communicators within organizations, we need to understand and see how we can contribute. So the way we work these days, and just a little bit of example, we really work with our influencers directly. We have a very well-defined influencer strategy, whether it's bloggers, whether it's verticals across businesses, and form opinions. So we really are moving from news to views. Similarly for employees, we give them access to all the content and ask them to move, to use that content to build their personal brand, business brand, and the organization brand. There's a little bit of risk there, but I think that's worth it. Now, this is a very interesting case study which I wanted to share. In 2006, there was this tender which came out by the Indian Railways. Now, Indian Railways is the second largest railway network in the world. It has more than 400,000 employees in the country. And that organization came up with a tender which hung around for 10 years. No results, nothing was, announced. And if people know India, you know that it's tough to deal with the government. 2015, we designed a strategy. Late 14, we designed a strategy of pushing the government, of voicing out, saying, hey, these are things that you need to look at. We had a very, very defined strategy. We knew this is the outcome. We want the tender out. Whether it comes to us or to somebody else, this needs to be in, a commitment to the nation. So we started talking about what's lacking in railways, what's not moving, what's the technology that needs to go into the railways, the Indian Railways. And that was an initiative by the communications team. Whether it's thought leadership, whether it was storytelling, whether it was the railways team directly talking, whether it was references from the global teams, I think 2016 start, we got the order. Today, when I look back and look at the business, they gave huge credit to the communications team, not because it was driven just by communications. Of course, everybody, the business team, marketing team, legal, everybody was there. But communications helped in creating the right noise and hence reach a climax where I would say the Modi government took note and said, hey, this is a place that we need to look at, the railways. And of course, we talked about, we actually got Modi to inaugurate one of our facilities, which was a brilliant factory. Today, it is one of the most advanced factories in the world for GE. It's a flexible factory, and we did so much of noise around it. We measured each and every message that was going out. Very relevant, outcome-focused, worked backwards. So that's something I take huge credit in terms of the business outcome. Now, as I said, once you have a brilliant factory, and again, 21 factories in the country, you have a huge audience of suppliers. They say if you have one job at GE, there are 8 people around you build in the ecosystem. So if we have 20,000 people, there are 160,000 people who we are affecting or impacting positively through a GE job. So 2 billion of sourcing out of India. Huge storytelling opportunity. We've started tapping these suppliers to tell our story. And these suppliers are local suppliers, global suppliers out of India, talking and telling our story. We also tag the government there just to make sure we are telling our story through them, and it's not always us. The third thing that we are very passionate and obsessed about is innovation. Innovation is something that we track across the world. And there is something called Innovation Barometer, which is normally led by GE. We do this study across the world to understand what innovation means in different markets. To millennials, to businesses, to the media, to the government. And if you see, it's been the 5th year that we do the Innovation Barometer study across. The numbers that come out are amazing. And that's something that we, again, use to put it back into the system and drive conversations. We get innovators together to talk about what's happening in the market, learn from them, and use it in our communication across the market. The reason I put up this is we measure everything. We don't do anything which we can't measure to reverse it around. Whether it's a social media campaign, whether it is media, whether it's positioning something, or whether it's thought leadership, we work backwards. Any business leader who walks up to me and talks about a problem, we start from the outcome, saying, what do you need, and how do we measure it? Measurement has to be in the DNA, and this is thanks to AMEC. 2 years back when I came in, I was talking about outputs and outcomes, and I think today I feel more confident. I'm sure there's a long way to go, including all our partners in measurement. Thank you. That's it.
Thank you. While I'm waiting for a question, Rachana, one phrase that people often use at the Global Summit in connection with where they are with measurement in their company, they say, we're on a journey. So what point in your measurement journey are you, do you think? Are you halfway there, 60% there?
I think it's evolving. The more, if I say it's 60%, then the line gets beyond 100%. I think we are quite, if I have to say this from the CEO's perspective, he knows that if there is communications is presenting something, we would come with numbers. We will only be able to push back or create something or curate something with real data. And we move from just numbers to data analytics right now in terms of communications, and I think that's a part of our DNA now, if that answers it.
Okay. We'll go middle row. Come down, please. Keep your hand up, Sergi. That's it.
Hello. When you talk about hard numbers, which I love it, which numbers do you use mainly? Can you put some examples to show to the C-suite the impact of your communication strategies?
So the different things, the way we do it is for internal communication, we're talking about culture change. So there are opinion surveys that we run, and we show how much we move the needle in terms of some criteria that we would have decided before we run the survey. So that's on internal communication. It could go down to as simple things like blogs, which our CEOs do, and everybody, I mean, in GE, we have the system of blogs. Who's reading? How much time are we spending on it? What's really working? What's the engagement? So if you go with the numbers, and that's what I do, and my internal communications leader does that, to the CEO saying, hey, this is not working, or this is doing well. These are the type of stories our teams want to hear. So that's for internal comms. For external, when we say media is something that I think we all talked about, social and thought leadership, how many people have we tagged, or who are the influencers we are working with, and is it making an impact? For example, not to be quoted on this one, we had a real challenge of access to one of the ministries, one of the biggest ministries that we had. And I think communications through social media was able to break the ice. We were able to, have a conversation with the ministry on social, and then the business team took over. So I think it is an integrated approach. Internal has different ways, different matrix. It could be campaign matrix, business matrix, which is outcomes, channel matrix, depending on whatever works with that business.
Yes, please, Paul.
Can you hear me? Hi. On the question, or the point you made around this empowering employees
Yes.
and partners and suppliers, how did you come to that decision? Because you mentioned there's a risk associated with that, and there are lots of organizations that I know that would be very reluctant to do that because they've got more of a kind of command and control approach. How did you culturally come to that view?
So there are a couple of factors into it. One, I think in my 20 years of career, the company that I see which is most articulate, most of the employees are extremely articulate in storytelling. Very, very evolved. We have the best stories across in different and remote locations where it is difficult for a lean communications team to actually pull out. Third, it's an age of social media. Who doesn't want to be recognized? Who doesn't want to be in the media? We leveraged on that need, the latent need as well. So, when budgets are truncated for advertising, you become, and when you don't have huge resources for thought leadership, you find out innovative ways. And that's when we decided we will use our employees to tell our stories. But the risk there is they would go and talk about whatever they want to, and particularly the aggrieved employees. And that's where we had to pump in and work a lot on content. So our advertising budget, which got truncated, actually went to create content which we could pass on to the employees. And in terms of suppliers, we realized that the voice to the government, only GE will not be able to do it. It has to be the local suppliers, the SMEs, the people who actually are gaining out of GE's presence in that market. So when they speak, the government takes note.
Thank you, Rachana. We're going to have to leave it there. Rachana is going to be with us later I'm sure she'll be happy to talk to you then. Thank you.
Thank you.